Good morning. Our next hand, early position, Queen 4 Hearts. It's a 10 NL game. Early position, I fold that, and we have a limp, a raise, and limper calls. So this is going to be somewhat of a tough hand because the stats. We've got 91 hands on this player. His limp first in stat is 17% total. He's limped a lot on the button 3 out of 4 times, but this is the first time he's done it on the cutoff. He's raised first in once on the cutoff. He's raised first in 3 times out of 52. So it's kind of like, well, what is he doing this with? What kind of range? Well, then we look at the notes, and we have seen some hands. We've got Ace 10 suited, King 10 suited, Jack 10 suited. We've got Ace 8 off, King 10 off, 9 8 off. So here's the idea: is if they have Ace 8 off, then they probably have Ace 8 suited and probably more of the weaker suited. If they have 9 8 off, they probably also have 9 8 suited and 7 6 suited. Possibility. It could be a raise, but you got to remember that Jack 10 was also a raise. So while I might have said his raise for sin stat would have included these hands here, we know that he limp and called with Jack 10, so I'm going to include all of those. Probably 10s and Jacks are raises first in. Maybe King Jack's a raise first in. Maybe Queen Jack's a raise first in. We just don't know. So I'd set up a range that looks something like this. Could have more of the Ace X offsuit hands. But you can see it's kind of weak. It's kind of scattered a bit. You miss all of these big Broadway hands. Next guy, this is the third hand. So I'm just going to like a default range. This is like 11%. He's raising the limper. It's no longer in a steal possibility. It's 11.3. We can change it. We can add more. We can add suited aces as like an isolation raise. We could add all of the pocket pair as isolation raise. We can kind of fix it and say this is 19%. So it's all kind of up to us as to what do we think this guy is doing it with. No notes, no nothing. We're flying blind. It's just like, okay, what's standard? So I think kind of standard. 10 NL. I think the weaker Ace X suiteds are probably just calls. They're going to limp behind. I think the offsuit connectors are probably just going to be limp behinds. I think our weaker pocket pairs are probably just going to be weaker limp behinds. I think our raises are going to look something closer to this. Maybe not even the offsuit hands, like the King Jack, Queen Jack. So we're back to like 11.6%. I think this is probably something just a standard player would play. And again, it's about what do we see at 10 NL? I do see people limp behind. So what would be the limp behind range look like? And I think some of those could have been raises, but people don't do that. So we're going heads up to the flop of Queen Jack 10 with 2 diamonds. Queen Jack 10 of 2 diamonds. First player checks, and then pre-flop razor bet. So question is, what's he going to bet? Do this with definitely top pair plus. I'm going to give him say flush draw open ender, probably because the board's like so good for him. He really does hit his range. Villain's lacking a lot of the broadways, like ace king. I don't think this guy has ace king at all. Could he have like Jack 10? Yeah, he could. Could he have Queen Jack? I think it's less likely. Could he have a hand like Ace Queen, Ace Jack? Probably not, but he could have Ace 10, could have King 10. So I think there are hands that he could play, but they're not going to be overly strong. Could he have a straight? Could he have a flop like 9-8? Yeah, he could have. Definitely. I think he has that in the range. So I'm going to give him top pair plus. I don't think I'm going to really give him the middle pair hand. I mean, we could. We just don't know. I'm just trying to think what's standard. Maybe the bottom pair. We don't know if he is a high C better or doesn't C bet a whole lot. I don't think pocket pair below the board's going to bet, and I kind of think like bottom pair is not going to bet either. Middle pair is kind of questionable. We could say 50%. Sometimes they're going to bet, sometimes they won't, just because they're going to be scared of that queen that's out there. All right, so we're going to say that that's his betting range. We assume villain's going to call. Oh, he also bet a smaller size, about a third pot. Does that make a difference? Probably not. Probably not. May just be this player's a better player, knows how to adjust his bet sizing. Who knows? All right, so this guy calls. Kind of think a check raise is going to happen if he has a straight. So we're going to set that at 50% and say that 50% of the time he would have check raised that. I don't think you were getting a check raise by two pair or top pair. We've got a fold to C bet of 100%, so 1 out of 1 went in position, or actually 3 out of 3 went in position, and then 1 out of 6 went out of position. So I think he's probably calling flush draw, open enders, and that probably open enders including some of these pairs. So I think we're going to include the open enders or include those middle pairs if they were part of the open ender. I do think possibility that he would have called the middle pair and maybe even bottom pair just once based on his stats. So let's do that. Let's keep it in there just based on his stats. Turn happens, 8 of diamond. Kind of puts up possibility of a straight and now a flush that's on the board. Villain checks, and then we have a pot size bet here. So this guy checks, no big surprise. This guy makes a pot size bet, and at this point, the question is he doing this as a bluff? Is he doing this because he has a straight? Does he has a flush? Would he? So I don't think he's betting that size with a straight flush. Just throw that out there. I don't think he's betting that large with a straight flush. That size with a flush could be true. Has a diamond. I'm gonna leave the flush. I think the straights are going to be less likely. We're gonna say 50% for like ace king. I don't think he would have bet the rest of those straights. And I think it's set just checks behind. But the nut flush draw, oh, he doesn't. Yeah, we don't have that. Yeah, I think he does that with ace king here. I don't think he really does it. He's got the straight and then the nut flush draw. I see that as being his range. He bet 1/3 and then all of a sudden he bet big. He bet big and then he gets called. And now at this point it's gonna be 2 pair plus, and the draw maybe. So I think the nut flush probably calls. The second nut calls. I don't think the third nut's gonna call, but I still think the open ender is gonna be calling here for that sizing with a weaker player that does a lot of limping. So okay, 9 comes out. Now that puts up, your straight 8, 9, 10, jack, queen. Villain checks here. Let's see if do I think he's ever gonna bet straight up? I don't think so. Based on this villain betting as much as he does, I think he's probably just going to check to him, and then we get an all in here, an overbet pot. And at that point, I just kind of think it's a flush. I don't even think it's a straight at this point. I think it's ace high flush. That's what he's doing that with. And then villain calls, and we have the ace high flush, you know, counted for. I mean, I guess he could have like the straight, like the ace king, but at this point, question is he really gonna call the straight? He shouldn't. I think he probably just gives it up, but I'm gonna say 50% he calls with the straight, and then with the flush, he's gonna call. Players will call with the 7-6, but I think ace high, king high. I think that's it. So probably king 10. If we're saying he has the ace high flush, then he must have the second nut flush. Hands are shown. We've got king 10, and then we got 7-5. So we were just like way off on this player here. We didn't even have 7-5 in his range. King 10 is in his range. We had that king 10 off. Wasn't even too sure that he would call based on the sizing. So we're gonna have to get some good notes on him. So we've got a limp. I guess it should be LFI and call. What was the sizing for? And call button for big B, ISO raise and cut off with king of diamonds, 10 of hearts. He is out of position. Check called 33%. Check called 100%. Check called 150% all in on a queen of diamonds, jack of diamonds, 10 of clubs, 8 of diamonds, 9 of clubs. All right. All right. And this guy, we were just like way tighter range. ISO raise for big blind on button with ISO raised cut off 2 4 big blind on button with 7 of diamonds, 5 of hearts. He is in position. He's at 33%, bet 100%, bet 150% all in. All right, so we're way off on these hands. Not so much king 10. I just didn't think he would be playing that. He would be calling it. Once you go for that sizes, 7-5 is way off here. I guess I could kind of see his ISO raise. You know, if you think this player's limping, but this is the third time at the table. Yeah, I mean, third hand at the table, unless he played with him before, maybe he knows that he's weak. Still, he's betting basically on the straight. He's playing the board, hoping villain's going to fold. I could see making this play with the ace king. I could see it making it with the flush. Especially with ace king, if you have like the ace of diamonds, because you block the nut flush. Makes it less. The most likely hands that he's going to have would be those ace-x suited hands, those ace-x diamonds. So if you have the ace of diamonds, you block that. So this could be a case where you're betting, trying to make it look like you're just going to play the board. You're trying to get the fold, and you're going to get called by some weaker players, like a king 10 here in this case would have called, and then you take their stack. So I understand like where they're going. I just don't think he executed it with the hands that he needed. He didn't have blockers. He was at the bottom end, and that's it. So go back to the flop bet. He bet, he c-bet. Yeah, I think that's good because I think his range was, you know, fairly tight. Now, in order to get 7-5, we're looking at something like that. which is still there, but I mean, that board really does connect with all of the broadways, and we've already said this player isn't going to have them. So, betting, making that c bet, that's fine. But then on the turn, I think he needs to check. You kind of ask yourself, what do you have on the turn? So you get here, what do you have on the turn? You've already c bet, and you're probably c betting at a higher frequency than I guess what some people would suggest. You're betting higher than 50%, but you're going to be betting, probably 70-80% here, which means you're going to be scaling back and only firing that turn bet, maybe 50%. So you're walking it back. You have a lot of hands in your range that are not very good. So at this point, you're looking at still betting probably your flushes and straights. You're probably betting your sets. You're probably betting your two pair, maybe your overpair. But then you're betting like your nut flush draws, possibly your second nut flush draws. You might be betting, like your good gut shots. I mean, you've got ace 9, 8, 10, jack, queen. Oh, because they're going for the ace. Yeah, so maybe you go for like the ace 9 or king 9, that you bet. But definitely probably scaling it back. And that means probably your overpairs are going to be somewhat of a check. You're not going to be betting all of your overpair sets, two pair hands. You're probably not even going to be betting all of your straight hands here in this case. So I think that's kind of how you play it. And then on the river, once you get called, turn was that 8 of diamonds, river was a 9. At that point, I think he's obviously going for a bluff to use the board, or we hope he's going for the bluff, but that doesn't work out for him. So not a fan of how this guy played it. Not really a fan of his limp call with king 10, but that's why we play. It's these weaker players. All right, so hopefully you enjoy the scene. If you do, you can look tomorrow for another one.